Evolutionary podcast coming your way. Hope everyone's enjoying our life out there. That's what it's all about. And Steve here and the Mobster joining me. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm enjoying life. I'm right there, and we're kicking ass and providing information to our listeners.
This one's going to be a very important one. This one is one that I've used many times, and this is
Yep.
one where Mobster definitely has been studying up on, and he,
Yes.
plans to use it many, many times as he gets older as well. And many of you out there may want to look into it. It really is a great peptide, one of my favorite peptides. It's called TB500. So in this episode, we're going to go over, the dosing, cycling, benefits, side effects, and talk about my own personal experiences with it. So, I want to bring in Monster first on this. So tell us a little bit about, kind of like what a weightlifter can expect. We got people listening to this podcast who are new to weight training. We got people who've been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. And I can remember when I first started weight training and really being active, one of my first big injuries I had was a high ankle sprain. I had another
Mm.
injury when I played football back when I was in my younger days where I hurt my wrist a lot. So, I had those injuries. And with weight training, I didn't really have injuries with weight training until I really started to lift heavy. As I
Yep.
started to get in my early to mid 30s, I started to really lift heavy in the gym, going for, max PRs. The ego was insane. Then I started getting
Egos release.
injuries, with my back and my spine and my and my shoulder. And so the injury bugs started hitting me. And a lot of you may think, you're in your 20s, you can just push through injuries, right? But what happens is as you get older and you try to push through injuries, those injuries become chronic. And then you end up just making the situation worse. So Monster, maybe spend a couple of minutes telling
Yep.
the guys what they can kind of expect throughout their weightlifting history. And we'll kind of jump right into how TB500 is so beneficial for injuries because this is a peptide
I mean,
specifically for that.
yeah. So as you know, Steve, I'm a world record holder, and I believe some of my world records still stand. I think the rules have changed, so my records will stand for all time unless those rules change back to what they was, because the new rules means it's a new record. Now, here's the thing, guys, and I've said this in conversation with when I talk to fellas down the gym or whatever. I say, look, if you got a country record, US or British, or an international record, say one in Europe or a world record, essentially you are talking about, especially with a world record, you are the only person on the planet that's done that. The only person, right? So here's the thing: whether it's the ego stuff that Steve talks about, and trust me, been there, seen there, done that, or whether it's doing world record shit, and it doesn't have to be in weightlifting or grip like me. It could be anything, and I mean absolutely anything: basketball, baseball, American football, soccer, any sport, any kind of crazy fucked up shit, climbing up a mountain faster than anybody else, whatever. The risk factor is huge. It just is, right? I'm asking my muscles, my tendons, my connective tissue, my bone, the skin on my hands, especially when I'm doing grip stuff, to do something that no one else has ever done before. So the potential for risk, whether it's a tear in my skin or straining a tendon or pulling a muscle, is that much higher than every other person ever, not just alive now, but throughout weightlifting history. That's how fucked up that kind of shit is. And you can't think like that when you're actually doing it. But in terms of the potential risk for injury, it's incredibly high. Now, whether it's smashing your toes, kicking a ball, or whether it's repetitive strain or whatever else, the risk factors become higher, as Steve referred to earlier on as well, as you get older. And it's almost a given. I mean, Steve and I could spend a whole podcast on this, I'm sure. It's almost a given that there is something on us aching right now because of use, even without it being world record levels use, Steve. It's just sheer wear and tear. When you're 24, 25, when you're 18, you don't imagine that your joints are going to ache. If you're, even if you're an absolute freak, Mr. Olympia level physique type competitor, you don't think about what's down the road. And again, you can't think like that if you want to become a champion. But here's the reality: there are very few top level bodybuilders, and certainly old bodybuilders, even if they're not top level, or weightlifters, or strongman, or anybody else that uses performance enhancing drugs and peptides like this, that once they've done 10 years, Steve, hasn't got some kind of ongoing issue, whether it's a bulging disc, if they've torn a muscle. I know a bunch of strongmen that have torn biceps. Almost everybody's had back strain at some point or whatever else. So the reason this peptide, which we're going to get into specifically, is so goddamn popular, and there's one other one which we'll talk about in a later podcast, is because of its mythical properties, so to speak, for repairing injuries. So yes, Dave, I mean, you said it. I know anybody over the age of 30, and certainly anybody that's done 10 years, and especially, I don't care how old you are, if you put 5 or 6 years at a high level into your sport, you're looking at some point at the risk factor for injury, if not actual injury, and the need for something like TB500, Steve.
All right, so let's talk about TB500 specifically, and why it's so awesome. So full name, Thymosin beta 4, and specifically designed to help deal with injured athletes and bodybuilders. So, but it's not going to do the same thing that GHRPs and GHRHs do when it comes to healing. It's not one of those. It's not a growth hormone releasing peptide or anything like that. It's actually going to specifically help you with healing. So now let's get into what TB500. So thymosin beta 4, it's naturally occurring peptide present in all animal and human cells. And so when you take the peptide, Mobster, you're pretty much just taking more of what we already have. So it's naturally already found in our bodies. We take more of it, and then more of it helps us heal. So the TB500 is a synthetic peptide directly linked to recovery, and it helps build new blood vessels. It helps new muscle tissue fibers. It helps cell migration. It helps blood cell reproduction. So it's going to help your body overall repair. One of the things I notice when I use it is I get more endurance. And that's because of what I just mentioned. Blood cells. When you get more blood cells like that, you get more oxygen moving throughout your body. So when you go and do a workout, it's going to seem easier. And that's why TB500 is so cool.
I want to just jump back in here for a second here, Steve. So when Steve talks about it naturally occurring in the body, that's really for what we would call day-to-day wear and tear. So there has to be a mechanism in the body that helps you recover from just going to work, just doing stuff around the house, just doing stuff on, posting on Evolutionary, wear and tear on your fingers, typing away, Steve. The difference between that natural day-to-day normal wear and tear and a major injury, let's say that you're out in the fields and you break a bone, or as we're talking about here specifically for athletes, the kind of stress and strains and especially injuries that we can put on ourselves as athletes, it's on another level. So natural wear and tear, you're covered by what your body naturally produces. You get a major injury, it needs to up its production. And in terms of what we're doing in the gym, you need another level again. And of course, what we're looking at here really is speeding up recovery. Steve knows about rest and recovery. We've told guys on the forum, go away, rest. Literally don't train that muscle or whatever else. But we know what you're like. We know that you want to train. So it's a speeding up of recovery, it's enhancement of recovery above and beyond what the body naturally produces for itself. Back to you, Steve.
All right, so now let's get into some more things. Let's talk about how TB500 works. So hinges on the ability to upregulate cell building proteins like actin. And when you get that actin going, it allows the TB500 to promote cell migration and proliferation. So you're not only going to get a boost with blood vessel pathways, but also you're going to regulate inflammation directly correlated with wound healing. So you're going to get a lot of versatility. It's going to extend to the molecular structure and low molecular weight. Lends to its mobility and ability to travel long distances through tissues. So you don't have to spot inject TB500. In other words, you can just inject it into your stomach, just like you would most other peptides, and it's going to travel throughout your body. So you'll get a nice effect that way. You don't have to inject it directly. So BPC is another peptide that's for healing. That one you have to inject as close as you can to the site. So TB500, remember, TB500 is the one you don't have to. So We're going to talk about stacking them in a second, but let me just add it right now. The best results you're going to get from healing is to use both the BPC 157 and the TB500 together. And the way you would use it is you use the TB500 and just inject it anywhere. And then you take the BPC and you inject it as close to the injury as possible. So another benefit, improve your flexibility. You're going to reduce inflammation in your tendons. And some of the people, I kind of noticed this a little bit. Some people notice too their head hair improves when they're on TB500, both with the gray hairs becoming less and also regrowth. And there's also some studies that show that it also helps with the heart, and it can also repair ventricular hypertrophy. I apologize, but if you're going to use it for something like that, please consult with a doctor. Consult with a really good cardiologist if you're going to. 100%. Don't be one of those people who have heart problems and you like go to Dr. Oz website and buy stuff off his website for your heart. No. You want to use a legitimate doctor, cardiologist when you're dealing anything with the heart. So don't use this peptide for that at all. But that could be an added benefit. So once we jump into that, we're going to talk about dosing and usage.
Very quickly. I mean, there's something that we actually come up on the forums this morning, Steve, and I've already actually replied to this particular question. Someone come on and they had a heart attack 12 years ago, and they were looking for some supplement to heal the heart. And I actually said kind of what you just said yourself. Quite simply, firstly, I said it's been 12 years. So the heart's going to be healed after 12 years, such as it is. You're going to have scars on there. You're going to have issues. You had a heart attack. You need to have a healthy lifestyle. So you're 100% healed, right? When we're talking about this kind of stuff, we're talking about performance enhancement above and beyond anything else. So, guys, don't come to us asking for cures for cancer, heart attacks, aneurysms, or anything like that. It's just above and beyond anything that we would dare to talk about on these things. And we've had not just heart attacks, Steve, as you know, multiple times when the first thing that's come out of our mouths, I know Dylan's done it. Go see a doctor. 100% go and see a doctor. And if you're not happy with that doctor, go and see a better doctor or change the doctor until you get solid advice that 100% about your particular medical condition. We're talking about recovery here from really sporting injuries. I want to be clear on that. It's not going to cure something. It's not a panacea. It's not going to fix everything. It is a aid to recovery from injuries and from the strains of injuries and scar tissue and stuff like that you get from doing stupid stuff. As an example, which I mentioned already, the bicep tears that strongmen have had from doing stuff like double overhand with axles and presses and this stupid great atlas stones that they're picking up and all that kind of stuff. The biceps are under stress. They get a bicep tear. Bicep ends up somewhere near their armpit, Steve. Tendons disappeared. And this is the kind of product that's going to help you recover. Not a cure for anything else. And 100% you need to seek proper medical advice. Let's talk about dosing and reconstitution here, Steve.
All right, so with all peptides, you obviously want to be careful when you reconstitute. You're gonna get the powder in the mail, the white little powder in a little vial. Yeah. Keep it out of the sun. Keep it in a cool, dry place. I would put it in the refrigerator right away. Don't put it in a place in the refrigerator like when you're opening and closing, it's going to be moving around. Does that make sense? So you want to keep it as still as possible. It's very, very fragile. It's not like anabolic steroids. Anabolic steroids, you can throw the vial on the ground. You can step on it. You can add heat. You can add cold. And the anabolic steroids are probably still going to work fine. But with these, they're very sensitive. So if you do it wrong, if you mix it wrong, you're going to ruin it. So very important to carefully add the backwater or the sodium chloride. And then the dosing, here's the downside of TB500. It can get very expensive because you're dosing it 2 to 2.5 milligrams twice weekly for 4 to 6 weeks. So it can run you quite a bit of money the more you use it. And some users go up to 8 milligrams a week. And it just depends on how aggressive you want to be. But if you're stacking it with the BPC is also not cheap either relative for how much you really have to use and how long you got to use it. So I really recommend when you're using the TB500, you've got to dose it on a consistent basis. It's not one of those where you're like, oh, I don't feel good. I have an elbow injury. Let me just take TB500 once or twice and
No,
I'm good to go. No.
no.
You got to take it for weeks for it to have the best results. I found this taking it at least 4 weeks. That's when you really start getting the good results. But the endurance benefits, Mobster, I've noticed right away after I take it. Like if I have a really hard, especially cardio session later in the day and I take it in the morning, my cardio session goes a lot better. I'm able to kind of like those red blood cells or the oxygen is moving around my body so much easier. So that is the game plan with it.
It occurs to me, Steve, what price recovery from an injury? If you, I mean, I'm talking about right now, just for myself, as an example, frozen right shoulder. So essentially, that restricts my range of movement, and it's something that typically most people recover in 12 to 18 months. But if you said it's going to cost me a couple of $100 to recover, and that much quicker, damn, $200, and I've got no more pain, and I've got more range of movement. It's suddenly the expense of the price, which Steve's quite correct about compared to other peptides. It seems cheap, guys. Again, I can go on the forums and I could literally create a thread right now, Steve, and say who's got an injury, and I say, well, look, how long have you had the injury? It'd be months. And is it uncomfortable? Does it wake you up at night in bed? Does it restrict what you can do in the gym? Yeah. And I go, okay, it's going to cost you $200 for 2 months, so $400 to repair your injury. $400, no more pain. Great, sign me up. This is why Steve said right at the beginning of the podcast, something that's definitely not on my to-do list. I'm actually going to be running a healing psalm cycle very, very soon. It's on my next to-do order. MK2866 is going to be there. I've actually got some TB500 here, I think, Steve, in my little stash. So these are definitely things that I would consider using. And I'm all this to say planning on a healing cycle right now with just psalms. So price, it's kind of almost, yeah, it's expensive, but no more pain. Wow. Sign me up, Steve. Seriously, sign me up. Let's talk about the side effects. And yeah, I mean, something I've just mentioned in this part of this podcast. Look at the healing stack for Psalms, but also look at potentially, as per the article that we're going to attach to this podcast, combining TB500 with MK2866. I mean, Psalms by comparison are a lot cheaper. You can run them for longer. So there's issues here, like I said, and I'm honest with you, Steve. I think if we did a poll on the podcast on the forum right now, I bet we can find 20% of our members have got some kind of tweaky, annoying, horrible injury that would be well worth paying $400-500 to get rid of. Absolutely. I want to talk about side effects, Steve, because I mentioned you in the pre-show. Most of the peptides, almost all of the ones that we've talked about up until so far in this series, come with some growth hormone-like side effects. Funny enough, and then again, everybody's different, guys. The head rush that some people get using growth hormone and growth hormone-like products doesn't seem to be one that's widely reported with TB500. But as I say, everybody's different, so keep that in mind. You might want to try, for example, low dose with any other peptides, the smallest effective dose, just to see how you feel and how. And again, this, Steve, we've had this with growth hormone, guys. Sometimes it's the simple fact was that you took it on an empty stomach. So there's stuff like that. You're also looking at another one which some people associate with a lot of the growth hormone type products, and that's a sense of lethargy. But then, of course, we actually talk about enhancing sleep. So again, timing for dosing would be at the end of the day. TB500, I don't think that's the case here, Steve. I think it's one of those ones that you could take in the morning. And because of the low reports for side effects, it's not going to make too much of an effect of the day. And also, you're getting it in and you're jabbing it when it needs to be taken. Worst comes to the worst, guys, take it late at night because you're only taking it once or twice a week. So it shouldn't be any particular problem. Back to you for a moment, Steve.
Yeah, one of the things to abusing these type of peptides, there is a risk of metastasis, and that can, cause, growths in the body, possibly even cancer. And I don't like to throw around the word cancer, but if you really understand how these peptides work, it's just like abusing HGH, for example. If you abuse the hell out of HGH for a long period of time, you will increase your chance of cancer, no doubt about it. Because if you abuse anabolic steroids for a long period of time, all that estrogen and androgenic effects will absolutely increase your chance of cancer. So I'm not going to like sit here and just push, you guys, oh yeah, run these compounds and not give you the facts. And the facts are, if you abuse the crap out of TB500 long term, there's that chance that you can kind of fire up cancer cells in your body. But if you use it correctly, I don't see it making a difference. I haven't seen, I mean, I've used it myself. I don't have cancer. A lot of guys have used TB500. They haven't got cancer. So I don't see it being an issue, but that is something I just want to make sure. Just the way this stuff works in the body, there's a chance that if you abuse the crap out of it for a long period of time, it can cause those types of issues. But it's not something that I would be like worried about. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just telling you the facts on this. So, but overall, I didn't have any side effects when I did it. I didn't have any side effects. Nothing was abnormal. Nothing. My workouts were better. My recovery was better. And, full disclosure on the healing, don't expect miracles. Okay. If you tear your shoulder or you slip a disc in your back and you think taking TB500 for 4 weeks is going to cure that,
yeah,
I got a bridge to sell you. And I'm not going to sit there and tell you, but it's going to make you feel better. It's going to reduce the inflammation and it's going to help heal it quicker. Absolutely. But it's not like a cure. I'm not going to say, I'm not like Dr. Oz. I'm not going to sit here and grift you to death and try to sell you fake supplements. Okay. Like these clowns out there, these fake doctors and these fake gurus. So I'm going to be honest with you. And that's what this podcast is all about. I'm going to tell you the good and the bad, but overall, absolutely. Everyone should try TB500 at least once, give it an honest shot for 4 weeks, run it at the dosages we recommend, and see for yourself. You'll notice if you know your body as well as me and Mobster do. Mobster and I want to use correct English. If you know your body as well as we do, you'll notice, wow, I feel this on my workout. If you stack it with BPC the way I'm telling you to do it, you'll increase your chances of healing that injury. And you can also stack in Ostarine MK. Ostarine MK also is something you can stack with it to boost the healing benefits to get maximum results. So yeah, I think Mobster, definitely chime in on that, Mobster. And then, take us into the disclaimer. I think we've pretty much covered everything on this peptide.
So when Steve talks about cancer, I just want to throw in a couple of words here, guys. All growth hormone and all peptides, specifically growth hormone, increase what's the phrase I'm looking for, Steve? It's all cells in the body are affected, and especially those that are associated with growth and regrowth and regeneration. So the argument becomes with growth hormone and some of the growth hormone type peptides, you go, okay, so the potential, if you have it in your family, and don't forget, guys, the older we get, the more likely we are to have some kind of cancer, and all of us have cancerous cells in our body anyway, becomes that much higher. So like Steve says, on the flip side of that, we could do another poll, Steve, and I don't think we could find a single person so far, I don't want to be saying that it's never happened, that we can think of in the sport that turned around and said that they think they got cancer from using growth hormone. I can think of one silly example, which would be brain cancer in low, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Aldazado, who was actually with steroid and growth hormone use, a famous athlete that used to train out of Gold's Gym, and he got brain cancer and he blamed the steroids. Now, he didn't blame, ironically, the growth hormone. So, yeah, like Steve says, on the terms of recovery, now, BBC, TB500, Ostarine, guys, these are not miracle cures. If your disc is bulging, it doesn't become unbulged. If your bicep's up in your armpit when you've torn a bicep, it doesn't become untorn. That would need to be worked on. Your disc and your back would need to be worked on, but the recovery from that injury is going to be enhanced. And that's the reason why we're talking about it today. 100% by rumor and by reputation, by whatever you want to call it, BPC and TB500 are both fantastically rated peptides. TB500 especially, because we're talking about it today, is one that if you go on the forums, if you go online, if you Google, if you watch videos on YouTube, you will see people raving about it. One of the things I said to Steve in the pre-show that is super important, on the rare occasion that you see someone criticizing, as in, I didn't get anything out of it, 9 times out of 10, it's because they didn't use a proper approved, verified source for their product. So they didn't know what they were getting. And it's real difficult for the average Joe, customer, whatever you want to call them, an athlete, to go off and get a peptide tested and properly done to verify what you've got in there. That's the problem we have with performance enhancing drugs rather than those given to us in a clinical situation. So make sure you use a verified and approved source so that you know what you're getting. And then, like Steve said, you'll know it's working because you're in tune with your body. You're training, you're eating clean. You know when you're having a bad day. You know when you feel dehydrated, and you certainly know when you've got an injury. And that injury feels like it's clearing up. I'm not as sore as I was before. That ache seems to be going away. My recovery is quicker, and you'll know that you've got a legit source and a legit product. So there's the thing, guys. Highly rated, highly recommended. One that athletes, and especially injured athletes, rave over, and a great way of speeding up recovery from injuries.
Yep.
Yes.
Give it a shot for sure. So, Mobster, take us in the disclaimer.
Please note, we're not doctors, and the opinions and ours alone. It is our viewing based on our experience and views on the topic. Our podcasts are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.